So let's start out with this photograph right here, and you see that we have a cross on a mountain with a nice blue sky in the background. And as we take a look at the photograph, you'll notice that the bottom portion of the cross here is pretty light, which looks nice against that dark blue background. But the top portion of the cross and the cross beam itself is pretty dark. And what I think I'd like to do is lighten that area up so it more closely matches the bottom. That in and of itself will look pretty good, but also to make it stand out a little bit against that blue sky. So to begin with, what we want to do, basically the procedure we're going to take is to duplicate this entire image a couple times so that we create a number of layers. And then on one layer we're going to lighten up the cross. And then what we'll do is we'll erase portions of the image so that only the lighter cross shows through, so we then have a total cross of pretty uniform tonality against this dark blue sky. So to get started, we'll bring our cursor all the way over to the right hand side here where the layers are, and what we want to do is we want to duplicate this layer. So we're going to right click and then go to duplicate layer, and for now we can just leave it background copy, which is good. And then we're going to do that just one more time. I'm going to create two duplicate layers here, like so. So now if we take a look at that layers menu or layers palette over there, we'll see that we have three layers all the same. I'm going to turn the eyeball off on that background layer so that's not visible. And I'm just going to keep that in case I get a little ahead of myself and I make some mistakes or something like that. It's easy just to go back where I started and go from there. So again, we want to make this cross a little bit lighter, and so to do that, what I think I want to do is I am going to take the middle layer here, the one that says background copy, and that's the layer that I'm actually going to lighten things up on. So I'm going to start by double clicking on the word background copy, and I'm going to type in there lighten, just to kind of keep me on track that that's the layer that I want to lighten things up. And I'm going to go ahead and lighten that right now. So the way to do that is, first I'm going to turn the visibility off on the layer above it, because we only want to see what the layer we're working on. And then I'm going to go up here on the left hand side to Image, Adjustments, and then Levels. And that brings up the Level dialog box. And we have a number of sliders here on that dialog box. We're going to take the center slider, the basic gray tones, and as we move that to the left, you can see that it's making things considerably lighter. And we're going to lighten it to the point that that cross beam in the top bar looks the way we want it to look. Now, don't be concerned that the entire image looks lighter. That's fine. Basically, what we're going to do is we are going to leave the top layer intact except for the cross beam and the top bar. And I think you'll see that just a little bit better in a moment rather than me explaining it to you. So now that I lighten that up some, I'm going to just click OK. And now I am going to turn the eyeball on the top layer, which is our dark layer. And again, just to kind of keep me on track here, I think I'm going to double click on background copy 2, and I'm going to type in darken there. So that's the darkened layer. So what we want to do now is on this darkened layer, we want to basically erase the top portion of the cross and the cross beam, and by erasing that on this top layer, we're going to see the lighten layer bleed through. So let's just grab our erase tool and let you see what happens. So I'm going to go over here to the extreme left hand side, find my erase tool, and as I click on that, you'll notice that up here along the top we have another dialog type box that opens up, and this is actually toolbars, and this is telling us how we can use our erase tool. I'm going to click on this little down arrow next to the number 15, and in that portion we can now control the size of our erase tool, and you'll see my tool right now in the blue sky, that small circle. If I were to take the size and slide it over, you can see that that circle gets considerably larger. The other thing we're going to take a look at is this hardness slider. And the hardness slider will determine whether or not when you erase you get this nice blurred edge as you see here, or whether you get this sharp distinct circle here. And we definitely want the blurred edge to make the retouch work that we do less noticeable. So I'm going to leave that on a hardness of 0%. So I'm going to come over here and as you can see, that little circle is pretty close to the size of the cross itself. But we want to make it a little bit smaller because it uses this soft feathered edge, and we don't want that soft feathered edge encroaching upon the sky at all. So we're going to make it a little bit smaller, and we're going to start to erase that cross. Now, before we start doing that though, we will do a much better and more precise job if we zoom this entire image larger so that we can pay closer attention to the edges. So I'm going to go over here on the left hand side and click on the zoom tool, and you'll see that there's a plus sign right there in the middle of the picture, and as I click on that it's going to magnify it larger, and we're going to magnify this a few times just to get this cross a little bit larger. And now I can go back over and grab that erase tool again, and again there's the size of our erase tool, and we want to make it a little bit smaller. So there's two ways to do it. The easiest way is to use the shortcut on the keyboard, which is the left bracket and right bracket, and each time I press the left bracket button you'll see that it gets smaller in size, and as I press the right bracket button you'll see that it gets larger. So we're going to reduce the size of this a little bit, and you can see now as I erase I'm getting the lighter cross in the background bleeding through because I'm erasing the darker cross, and our tonality looks pretty close between this bottom portion down here and the top. So I'm going to continue to erase this now. I think one of the things that you can start to see is we need to be just a little bit cautious because we do not want to erase on the sky. So I'm not taking it right to the very, very edge. I'm keeping it in just a little bit here. And in a moment, I'll show you how we're going to even fine-tune that a little bit more. But I'm going to just start erasing some of the stuff, and I'm going to start erasing some up here as well. Now, I do want to get a little bit more of the top area of this cross, but you can see that it's run off of our screen. So in order to move the entire image down, the easiest way to do that is to press and hold the space bar on your keyboard, and you'll notice that that little round brush that was the eraser turns to the hand. So keeping your finger on the space bar, don't let up on it, left click and drag it down, and you can see that we can drag our image down. Let up on your mouse, now let up on your space bar, and you're back to that erase tool again. So again, we're going to just erase a little bit of it like so. Alright, now just for the heck of it, to make sure that we're kind of on the right track, let's zoom it back so that we see the entire image. So on the left hand side here I'm going to click on the zoom tool. You'll notice that it has a plus sign in there. That would mean that every time we clicked we would magnify it. If you go all the way up on the top and click on the minus sign, you can now make the image smaller. Alright, and you can see here that yes indeed we're starting to erase it. It is starting to match the bottom portion of the cross pretty nicely, and it's standing out a little bit better against that blue sky, which is exactly what we were hoping to achieve. So what we need to do now is just basically finish this job. So I'm going to click on the plus side on the zoom tool and magnify it so it comes in a little bit larger again, just like before. And I'm going to just take a look at the top here, and I'm going to grab my erase tool and get prepared to erase some more. Now, one of the problems that you have sometimes as you're erasing this, it's hard to tell if you erased that area already. One of the ways we can figure out what has gone and what has not is if we go over here to our layers palette and we turn off the lighten layer, you can now see the area that we erased off the top layer. Now if you're getting confused at all, just take a look. You have 3 layers. We currently only have 1 layer visible, and that's the layer that says darken. So if we just erased something off of the darkened layer, which is exactly what we're doing, because the layers below it are currently invisible, we see nothing below that. If I turn on the visibility for the layer below it, the lighten layer, then that starts to bleed through. So I'm going to leave that layer off for now, and I'm going to go in with my erase tool and try to erase it a little bit more. Now the other thing you can see is my brush is really getting too big for some fine erasing. So I do need to make this brush a little smaller in size. I'm going to press the left hand bracket on the keyboard to reduce the size of that, and I'm going to try to erase just a little bit closer to the edges. Again, trying my best not to get into the blue area at all. We really want to keep that blue area as dark as possible. And ultimately, when we're all said and done, if the edges of the cross are a little bit dark, that's probably not going to be so noticeable. Let's just continue to go through here like so, and just take it a little bit closer to the edge. And you probably notice that every once in a while that little hand pops up on the screen. That's because I wanted to move the cross to another section to work on it. So I press the space bar, the hand comes up, left click and slide it over, and that allows me to slide that over some. Now you can see that this could end up being quite a bit of work, and when you have a large section like this, we could speed things up just a little bit by increasing the size of the eraser so that we take a considerably bigger swatch out of the center. Again, being really cautious though, because we don't want that big eraser swatch to end up encroaching on the blue. So typically you're tempted to erase a lot. You do have to be careful and be prepared to reduce the size of your eraser, and now would be a good time to do that. I will tell you too that there are other techniques that we can use to achieve the same thing, and in the future I will talk to you about those. One of the reasons I like to do it this way early on for a Photoshop student is because you get to use some tools on a repeated basis that are going to be pretty important for you to understand how to use in the future. So even though you may talk to someone and they'll tell you, oh, you should have done it this way or you should have done it that way, there's a real method to my madness here, and that is in the hopes that by doing this you will start to feel more comfortable with the layers, and you will start to get a sense of some of these tools that you can use and become proficient in them, like the erase tool and the zoom tool and the move tool, which is allowing me to move this cross as I erase. So we're just going to continue to do this and see how we do. We're almost done here. So now that we erased all that area, you can see that the cross definitely stands out significantly better against the background. And if we take a look at the layer sections over here, what I think I'd like to do now is take the top layer here, the one that says darken, and merge that with the one underneath it that says lighten. I don't want to completely flatten my image. I still want to keep this original background layer here. So let's just merge those two together, and to do that we go up to the top here and we're going to click on layer, and then we're going to click on merge down, and you can see over here in the layers palette that it brought those two together. Now just to see the difference between where we began and where we left off, I'm going to make the background layer visible, and now I'm going to make the lighten layer invisible, and that's where we started and that's where we are now. So you can see that that cross definitely stands out a little bit better against that dark blue background sky. Now this technique that we've just used, you can use to make things lighter, to make things darker, and your whole idea here is hopefully to draw more attention to your main subject, whatever that is. We'll probably be working with this image a little bit more in the future, but I think you're ready now to try to use this technique to enhance your photos some.